Well, look, we've been talking about him a lot here on the show since the season got underway in college basketball. The Sixers season starts to spiral in the other direction, and then the Sixers landing the third overall pick, which puts you right in the Ace Bailey range for when he comes off the board. So, while we've been talking so much about him and getting into a lot of conversation about Ace Bailey, today we need to talk about strictly the strengths and the weaknesses of the player. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast here on a Thursday alongside Derek Bodner. I'm Devon Givens. Kyle Neubeck has the day off.
Kyle said, I do not feel like being yelled at for this show topic, so I am not coming in.
Very true. Very true. And President of Basketball Operations, Bree, always in the house. She's always ready to go for these types of conversations. So we're here with you. We're going to have this tough conversation of the good, the bad, and as we have the good, the bad, the ugly, as Kyle likes to do after each game. We're going to have the good, bad, the ugly for Ace Bailey, and partly so, folks, because of on our website, allphly.com, Derek did a story, a 4-part story that begins with the first part, which was dropped today at allphly.com, and it's titled, Ace Bailey Scouting Report. Should the talented but polarizing forward be the Sixers pick at 3? And that's what prompted me to ask Derek, can we talk about this today on this Thursday so that people know, of course, that the article is there at allphly.com. Please go sign up if you haven't and go read it. It's great. And then there are other 3 parts that will be following as well right there at allphly.com. But Derek, I mean, it was important, man. Look, we're June 5th and we're still having the conversation of who should they pick at pick number 3. Yeah. And you guys talked about Dylan Harper a ton on Wednesday's show. Is he locked in? Is he not locked in? Could things change? Could someone else like San Antonio maybe like Ace Bailey at pick number 2? Do they trade back? All kinds of things, all kinds of scenarios. And the same can be said for the Philadelphia 76ers. But if everything stays the same, he's going to be in the mix in the conversation, despite what some people say. Look, we had our buddy Seth Greenberg on Tuesday. He talked about how much he liked Ace, but when is he going to learn that maybe you can't say some of the things that she said, which is going to upset some people in the front office for your job interview that you're about to have, where maybe they don't want to hear that type of stuff. That's also a strength, but it could be a weakness, as you talked about in your piece. So going through it, to start off with you, we'll get into it all. We'll read all of your chats. We appreciate everybody as always. Yes, Brian Pumper will love the fact that we're doing this show today as we focus on Ace Bailey. He's probably going to like a lot that we said and not like a lot that we will also say about the prospect.
And here's what I'm going to say, Brian. We'll take your super chats, of course. We'll read them. But we're going to wait probably until overtime. We're going to wait until the end of the show just because we don't want to completely derail. We get it. You have strong opinions on Ace and VJ. We just can't derail every show with every thought that you have. Look, I think there's a lot of Ace people who are going to say, like, don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. Talent's clear. Don't overthink it. I think that gets you into a lot, Kyle checking in, coming up with an excuse. We know you're ducking, buddy. We know you're ducking. I think it's a lot of people will look at things at the time of the draft and think, don't overthink it. And I think we undersell how easy it is to get this wrong. I've mentioned this before, but I went through the last 24 drafts, not counting last year because 1 year is not enough time to get a real read on it. But I looked at the player drafted third, compared their career value over replacement with the next 5 picks in the draft, right? Because I don't want to, mix the results with like Giannis, who was drafted at 15th, or Jokic in the second round. I want to limit it just to people who were really or would have realistically been considered with that pick. Teams only got the right pick 9 out of 24 times, or at least the pick with the most value over replacement player. 9 out of 24 times. It's barely more than 1 out of 3. Mm-hmm. And some of those were pretty catastrophic with the misses. Some of those were, a little more debatable. But the point is, what we think is obvious at the time of the draft is frequently not. And it's real tough to figure out. It's one thing I will sit here now and say these are his strengths and weaknesses. It's a lot tougher to say, well, which of those are correctable? And it's not only tough for me to say it, it's tough for GMs to say it. It's tough for scouts who spend legitimately, this is what they do for a living. So, the way I approach the draft, and there's a lot of strong opinions on the draft, and especially a lot of strong opinions on Ace Bailey. The way I approach it is, all right, we have the time and the resources to watch a lot of basketball. A lot of basketball. And in fact, I have watched every Ace Bailey game.
Yeah.
That does not mean I'm going to be right. Because like I said, even the best of the best are right barely more than 1 out of 3 times. But what it does mean is I'm going to have some strong opinions on what he's good at and what he needs to improve upon. You all, because you don't theoretically or presumably don't get to watch the time and the justification to be able to watch every game, you can weigh that however you want. We can reasonably disagree on what he is likely to improve upon, and that's fine. But all I'm trying to do is I sat here, I put in the work, I watched all of these games. Here's what I think. You value that however you want. I don't want to tell you Ace stinks. I don't want to tell you they shouldn't draft him. I don't want to tell you you should give up on him as a prospect. I'm just trying to relay what I've seen and what I've witnessed. That's it.
Yep. So that's what we're going to do here. And look, there's some things that you like. There's some things you don't like. There are prospects that they may like that I may not like. And speaking about Derek and Kyle, and the same on my end, where I like a player, maybe Derek and Kyle don't like him as much. So we'll discuss all of that today when it comes to Ace Bailey and the conversation that surrounds him, because he is as polarizing as he is. The last time someone talked about this player like this, was it Jahlil Okafor?
I think that's when, certainly locally, that's the
and that's what I mean, locally.
Yeah, and I think
about anybody
I don't want
else.
to compare them too much as players, but in terms of how the discourse was, yes. Because I think, sort of like Ace, Okafor had very clear skills that appealed to a certain, portion of the basketball viewing audience, and they did not like any concerns that you may have had about him. Yeah, I think the discourse around it is very similar.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into it, man. Just looking at the good things about Ace Bailey that you talk about in the piece, and you speak about his jump shooting, the fact that he's a tough shot maker, the defense where it may not be all NBA, all defensive ready, but he's a guy that cares. When we talk about a player that doesn't care, we talk about Tre Johnson a lot, how much we like him, but we didn't see a lot of defensive effort at Texas when it came to Tre Johnson. It's not the case for Ace Bailey, because he did do a lot of the good things defensively as a weak side helper, one that can do that as a player at Rutgers. So the strengths for the people who like to get on both you and Kyle, and we'll do this a little bit more with Kyle maybe next week, where we get a chance to talk about the strengths and the weaknesses a little bit more with Ace Bailey and some of the other players in the draft class, especially the ones that we focus on for the Sixers. Some of the things that you speak about and focus on for his strengths as this 6'9" player. Again, for the people who say he's 6'7", stop saying he's 6'10", or when he's in shoes, he's 6'9". So the 6'9" player that he is, the strengths that help him out on the NBA level.
So, and to the point that Devon referenced, the article I wrote, it is basically a summary, like a physical profile, statistical profile, thoughts on that. There are going to be then follow-up articles with video breakdowns, one for his strengths, one for his weaknesses. Those will be coming out shortly, probably one over the weekend, one early next week. So just laying it out there, what's published right now is sort of like an overview of who he is. In terms of strengths, I think off-ball shooting is the one that pops right away. He was a borderline elite catch-and-shoot player for as an 18-year-old freshman. He was borderline elite for anyone, especially when you factor in the difficulty of the shots and the volume. His ability to make contested shots off the catch was elite. Legitimately, out of all the players in this draft, the only one who's really comparable is Kon Knueppel, and shooting is what makes Kon Knueppel a very valuable prospect. Ace was right there with him. And I think that's really when you look at him, because he is 6'9", with an 8'11" standing reach and a super high release point on that shot. And he is just not bothered by a contest, especially off the catch. We can talk about off the dribble. That is very different. But off the catch, he is a borderline elite catch and shoot player. He then also leverages that. I think he's a pretty good movement shooter as well. Nothing like JJ Redick-esque right now, where you're just having him run 1,000,000 miles an hour off a floppy, but he can relocate off ball. He can run off of a screen, catch, rise up, and shoot. I think that when you just factor those two things in, that is the basis of a potentially valuable offensive player. We can talk about star upside and star equity, but just the ability to shoot at that size, at that volume, and with that little bit of space. I talk about this a lot. It's not just making shots. The volume and the difficulty of the shots and how contested they are and your comfort taking a contested shot is huge, because if if a defender thinks, well, he's going to hesitate if I close out on him, then he's going to be willing to drift farther and farther away. It impacts your spacing quite a bit. It limits your gravity. With ace, he's going to launch that shot. Even if you get a good contest, it might not impact him. And because of that, he has real gravity. And I think that's going to be true.
So when I was looking at the comparisons that you had, Tatum, Durant, Porter Jr.
And these were almost purely physical comparisons.
Yeah. But some that he has been talked about as comparable to for how he plays. Paul George being another. And the one that we don't talk a lot about, but we talk about him in the sense that New Orleans, should they trade him? Should the Sixers go or try to acquire him? Kyle talked about him a lot. And that's Trey Murphy. And the skill set, the measurables, all really similar, man. Really similar when it comes to the measurements and all that stuff. But even also when you watch Trey Murphy at Virginia, while he wasn't a top 3 projected pick or a top 5 projected pick, he was one that was, hey, this guy has a chance to be pretty good. And coming into the league, he's shown that. And you get to see exactly that. He can score 40, which he has done many times in the league now. He is one that seems to be the most untouchable player for the New Orleans Pelicans under the new leadership of Joe Dumars and Will Weaver, based on the reports that have been out there, that he is the one that is untouchable, unless you believe the report also out there that they're still looking to build around Zion because Joe Dumars had to have a real conversation with him and tell him exactly who he was and what he felt about where he is right now. But the Ace Bailey and Trey Murphy comparison has been a really interesting one if you watch Trey Murphy play the way that he does. Now,
and Trey, you're talking about him at Virginia. He was a junior at that point. Yeah. He was a 20-year-old junior.
Right. So, so exactly. So he had the 2 years on him before he decided to leave school and go to the league. But in this case here, he was one that Trey Murphy at that time could put the ball on the floor, can finish at the rim a little bit better than what you talk about. One, we'll get to the weaknesses of it, that he doesn't do as much. But the positives of those players that he has, and to be compared to that, that is one that you hear a lot of these pros talk about how good he is. And the reason why, of course, I don't push them away and push them aside is that they are guys that, while they are not great talent evaluators that you would hand the keys to an organization and say, let's go draft these guys and put them on my roster, they do recognize the talent, though, of what the kid does. And the scoring ability is what is going to get him on the floor first. The scoring ability, and maybe even as coaches will go, in a situation like Philadelphia where you have to you have to do other things to stay on the floor, that defense is going to keep him on the floor too.
Well, and even so, it's one thing to have scoring ability, but if you're an off-ball shooter and you can translate that early, and a lot of times it might take players a year or two to translate to the NBA range and NBA athleticism. Maybe Ace not so much with the athleticism because he does have that high release point. And he does have a lot of comfort shooting with a tough contest. But it is still a couple feet farther back. It takes a little bit of time to adjust. But if he can get that quickly, then it's we can, when we get into the weaknesses, there's some weaknesses offensively. But if he limits his game to a pure catch and shoot game, theoretically, he can contribute. That's something that can translate pretty quickly.
And with that movement, and we strictly talk about it with Philadelphia, if he's on the floor, he's either going to be on the floor with Embiid, Maxey, George, let's just say those three right there. Then there's a possibility that he's going to be on the floor with McCain and Grimes at the same time, where those other three may not be on the floor there. And he is going to be one that you're with some other really good players. Well, we've talked about, no disrespect to the Rutgers players, this is not that roster. This is a totally different roster where the looks might be a little bit different, where he can do some things out there with that spacing and show who he is. The catch and shoot with the first three, the three cornerstone players of your organization, he is going to have that maybe weaker defender that we speak of. Or if that relocating that you talk about, Derek, whether it's the catch, put the ball on the floor, the sidestep that we speak about with Knueppel or Tre Johnson, he can do that as a catch and shoot guy. But also, hey, one bounce to the left, one bounce to the right. Let me reset myself to get that shot off. The other one is, man, those non-rim finishes that we talk about, if he's cutting off ball with George, Maxey, and Embiid, three, let's say at least 2.5 or 1.5 or 2 in total, willing passers to find that guy going backdoor or cutting across the middle to get that finish. He is athletic enough to finish at the rim by being able to relocate, and that way too, to find those creases in the middle of the defense along the baseline to finish at the rim. Those are positives for him that while we may not have seen it at Rutgers, Derek, those things work and he sees he's going to get those passes and he sees the shots are a little bit easier on this particular team, that will make him overall, when we look at the evaluation maybe 20 games in of what some of the things that he wasn't doing as well at Rutgers, that those are things that we're looking at and saying, oh, this is why we thought, or this is why the way he was scouted and thinking that these are positives that could be increasingly better because of the team that he's going to, which is not Washington, Charlotte, Utah, et cetera.
Yeah. And I think when you really see his athleticism start to pop, because he's athletic in some cases.
He's athletic simply because he's 6'9".
Well, and like when he has a chance, and people will, I think, if there's one thing you should just throw away at the NBA Combine, it's like vertical jumps.
Mm-hmm.
Those don't matter to me at all. I've seen so many people, like I think Russell Westbrook had like a 34-inch vertical at his Combine. He's one of the most athletic players we've ever seen. It's just a bad way to measure athleticism. Just vertical alone is an incomplete measure of athleticism, and the way they do it at the Combine is not a game representation at all. So when you see Ace look really athletic, I think it's mostly off ball. It's when he has a chance to load up. It's when he's a cutter and able to finish at the rim like that. I think that's when he looks impressive physically. And I do think like this is sort of building off of some of his off ball shooting, but like even his passing, when his his passing for the most part looks tragic, and this isn't the negatives column, so I'm not going to harp on it too much. But when it looks decent is when he catches on the perimeter, attacks the closeout, takes one dribble, and lets it go right away. It's not so much the on-ball stuff. It's much more secondary stuff when he's able to use his gravity to create a wide-open driving lane and make some really simple reads out of it. I think there is the makings of I don't want to say role player, but more of an off-ball player that I think could be really intriguing.
Okay, and real fast, I wanted to say to Mark, I think he's talking about, when he says 6'7", he's talking about Ace Bailey. Because I said 6'9", but once again, when we say it based on when he puts the shoes on, and they have the soles on the shoe. That pushes him up to 6'9" because he measured out at 6'7.5".
The reason I like to say like his in shoes measurement, like when we talk about him, I'll say 6'9". It's because most players historically, when they're listed on like NBA.com or various places, they're listed on their in shoes measurements. So if I say he's 6'7.5", you're going to take that no shoe measurement, compare it to players who are measured in shoes, and he's going to seem smaller than he is. Mm-hmm. So yeah, in the article I listed a whole bunch of players of similar archetype. He was Ace Bailey was 6'7.5" without shoes. Jason Tatum 6'7", Kevin Durant 6'9", Michael Porter Jr. 6'9.5", Brandon Ingram 6'8", Trey Murphy 6'7.5", Paul George 6'7 3/4. So he's roughly like a Paul George-ish, Jason Tatum-ish size player, give or take.
All right. So those are some of the strengths that we talk about with the movement shooting, the catch and shoot opportunities there, confident shooter in general. Confident shooter on the movement, defensive playmaking, the versatility, off-ball cutter, the defense. Just to get into that a little bit more with the defense, how does that translate to the NBA? Because he does have a slender body. He has a little bit smaller of a body. Some of these guys looked a little bit more defined when you talk about the players that you mentioned in his comparables with the measurements and all. But the body type looks a little bit different than some of the other ones because he is so thin. And Kyle always says the Kevin Durant thin is a little bit different from everybody else's thin. And you even talk about it in the story because of the fact that Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant. The measurables were just off the charts for him at close to 7 foot and all those other things.
He has like 5 inches of wingspan on him.
So how does that translate, though, to the NBA?
No, I think, look, defensively, he's a bit of a mixed bag. You know, I do think he had an 8'11" standing reach, which is really good. It's about the same as Colin Morey-Boyles, who a lot of people project can play a little bit of small ball center, probably a decent chunk of small ball center. You're not going to ask Ace Bailey to do that because Ace Bailey is a twig and he would never hold up to the physicality of it, certainly not early on in his career. But I do think it gives him a little bit of weak side, off-ball rim protection, and they used him as a low man quite a bit, and I think he was relatively effective in that. I think maybe if you're talking about like early part of his career, one of the more projectable parts of his defense is that he can rotate over and make a shot. He shows decent timing in doing so. He shows the willingness to pursue some of those. I do think he is, with his 6'9" size, again, that's in shoes, and also his wingspan, which comes in at just over 7 feet, I think he has the physical profile to be a pretty versatile defender. I don't think he's like shut down. And
No.
I don't necessarily think I project him as shut down. You know, he has a pretty high center of gravity. He doesn't change direction at an elite level. It's not a bad level, but it's not an elite level. I think he's going to struggle going through screens. So I don't see him as like a shutdown, but I see him more as like at his best. And I think there's some work he's got to do in terms of being engaged, being aware, recognizing the rotations, all of that stuff, which is both typical for an 18-year-old, but also he needs, I think, a little more improvement, some of that stuff than a typical 18-year-old. I think if he, improves the way that he is capable of and reaches his upside of his physical profile, he can be a versatile, average to slightly above average perimeter defender who can switch onto multiple positions and also be a weak side help protector. Like, I think that's the upside for his defense. I don't think it's going to be elite. Like, I think some people think he's going to be an elite defender. I'm not sure I see that, but I think he can be good and useful.
Could you see the Kelly Oubre, where we talk about him? He showed some of it at Kansas where, he plays with all this energy and emotion anyway, so he kind of digs in the way that he did even at Kansas. You saw some of it at Washington. You saw some of it at Phoenix. Maybe not as much in Charlotte. That can kind of zap you, especially when you want to score all the points. But when he got here and accepted his role for who he was, we did start to see a much better defender. Maybe not all NBA, but it was one that we felt comfortable. All right, you got that assignment of Jalen Brunson in the postseason, in the playoffs. I feel okay with that. Could you see Ace Bailey even getting to that level? That's not all NBA worthy, all defense, but it is somewhere where you can count on him a little bit.
I think it's a little... Like, I think Kelly's strength is really on ball, whereas Ace is a little more off ball.
Fine.
But I think certainly in terms of like just overall impact, Kelly is a good defender, probably a very good defender. And Kelly, I think, has grown in that regard. Like, I think his decision making has gotten better over the last couple of years, and he's, I think, certainly bought in more consistently. You brought up Charlotte; it's tough to really get bought in at Charlotte. Also tough to get bought in when you're, the primary offensive threat, dropping 20 per night, like Kelly was asked to do. But yeah, I think there is certainly a pathway. Like I said, I think the key is going to be his recognition and awareness and whether he can get that up to an average or above average level.
Why is all the positives, though, as we lead into the strengths of weaknesses on the other side, why are they maybe overshadowed a bit when we talk about Ace Bailey? Because they are some good strengths, but they're overshadowed by the weaknesses.
I mean, decision-making is a very important part of the game. Like, what makes elite players elite is what happens up there. And his processing is, I think, just not where it needs to be. And I think that holds back pretty much every aspect of his game.
Okay. All right. Interesting. And we'll talk about that more. That's also maturity of the player, the person, and the game overall. We'll get into the weaknesses on the other side because, as Derek wrote the strengths, got to be fair. Got some weaknesses, too. We'll talk about it on the other side as we hang out with you on this Thursday. Kyle has the day off, but active in the chat. So he's chatting it up with some of the folks there in the chat. Derek Bodden, Devon Givens, president of basketball ops. Bree is here. We're hanging with you right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. And folks, let me tell you about Parks Casino. Tell you about the great people there at Parks Casino. I can tell you about Parks Casino, Parks Online Casino, and we can also tell you about the Excite Center at Parks Casino. So today, let me focus on the Excite Center. The Excite Center at Parks Casino is one of the many things that I do love about my casino of choice. That is, once again, Parks Casino is Pennsylvania's #1 casino and is close to Philadelphia, located in Bensalem. Take the Street Road exit off of I-95 and the PA Turnpike. The Excite Center is the state-of-the-art entertainment venue located inside Parks Casino. I can tell you about that because when I used to do shows there once a week, it was always a fun environment with the people walking around. You talk to people during the breaks, and they are talking about the other shows that they want to go see there at the Excite Center, whether it's a comedian or a musical group, musical act that's there that people wanted to go check out. The Excite Center was the place to be. It's the state-of-the-art casino, again, venue right there, named one of the best places to see the country's best comedians, music headliners. Visit parkscasino.com to buy tickets for all shows. Bill Murray and his group are going to be there later in the year. Yes, that Bill Murray. So go check out, once again, parkscasino.com to buy those tickets and others. Pre-game, the shows at their amazing beer garden. That's a fantastic spot to be right there on the outside where you can have the windows are open, the doors are open sometimes, the sun is coming down, the natural light is beautiful. Play some pop culture slots, roulette cards, and other table games you love while you wait. That's my experience there. you should go experience some of that for yourself. So Parks Casino, this is how you win. You must be 21 and over. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
We also want to tell you about Golden Nugget Jewelers. For the past 30 years, Golden Nugget Jewelers has operated out of the very same location in the heart of Philadelphia. Customers from across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and even Baltimore and New York City have come to Golden Nugget Jewelers to find that perfect engagement ring or wedding band. Their staff is highly trained and dedicated to providing a personalized shopping experience. Golden Nugget Jewelers has a vast selection of engagement rings and wedding bands, along with high-end watches, fashion jewelry, and sparkling diamond necklaces, bracelets, earrings, and more. And you receive a final cleaning and written appraisal with every engagement ring purchase. Golden Nugget Jewelers has been a family-owned and operated business since 1987, right there on Chestnut and 8th in downtown Philly. You deserve an expert and the best price. Golden Nugget Jewelers, where Philly gets engaged. Visit goldennuggetjewelry.com to learn more.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast. Before we get to and get back to talking about Ace Bailey and some of the weaknesses in his game, let's tell you about the big deal, folks. The big deal presented by Cherry Hill Mitsubishi. Yes, go check out the great people. Once again, Cherry Hill Mitsubishi at the triplex there, cherryhill.com. All right, let's talk about this one, Derek, because this is a big deal. The Phoenix Suns now have, in the Devin Booker era, their 7th full-time head coach in his career. He has had a fantastic career.
He has, but it's not that long. It's not long enough for 7 coaches.
It's insane that he has had this many coaches, but it's a big deal. Jordan Ott, the assistant coach for the Cleveland Cavaliers, it was down to he and Johnny Bryant, both Cavaliers assistants, and Jordan Ott got the job. Some reports are saying, of course, check out PHNX Suns, and Gerald's doing a great job there talking about the whole situation. Devin Booker had a voice. Obviously, as the franchise player, he should, after this being his 7th head coach, in this hiring. And they finally have their guy. Will it make a difference? Jordan Ott, franchise's new coach.
Yeah, we'll see. Look, I'm not going to sit up here and pretend that I know a whole ton about Cavaliers assistant coaches. It is, Ishbia hiring another Michigan State guy. Look, optically does not mean not qualified. Optically does not mean he'll bad.
Just doesn't look
optically, good. It doesn't look great when the only people you hire are Michigan State alum, but I'm rooting for him. I hope it works out.
Right.
Coaching is tough, especially in this day and age. It feels like you have a 2 to 4 year window and then you're out in that franchise, probably on the lower end of that range. So I hope this works. And it's always tough for it's one thing for like Bud to go there and only get a short amount of time. He's had a run. He's had a great run. He's made a lot of money. For an assistant coach getting his first spot, I honestly do hope it works out. It's a tough to climb up.
It is.
Oof, that's a tough roster to try to win with.
And then you see another report out of Phoenix is talking about the Phoenix Suns don't want Bradley Beal. Guess what? You traded for a guy that has no trade clause.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yep.
Right? That's on you right now. So I don't know where that goes. The Kevin Durant thing continues to have a lot of legs to it, whether he's going to be on the move or not. I don't know that this is going to inspire him to want to stay there now by getting Jordan Ott and another coach for him after the Budenholzer situation. He was there who was there before? It wasn't Monty Williams. Who was there for his final when he got traded? Was it Monty Williams? It was Monty Williams.
They all merged together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
There's been so many.
I think it was Monty Williams for that year, and then Budenholzer has 1 year.
Yeah, because that was like right after he got Coach of the Year, Monty.
Because when he got it, Kale was still there, and that was still his coach. So yeah, the big deal presented by Cherry Hill Mitsubishi, Jordan Ott, the new head coach, franchise head coach for the Phoenix Suns. Interesting. Now the Knicks have to find their coach. Is that the only opening left?
I think.
Yeah, I think that's the last. The last one. Yeah.
Well, hopefully your interview went well yesterday.
Thank you. Went really well.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Talk about nepotism.
Hey, if it gets you a paycheck, I'm pro nepotism, buddy.
And I might hire you guys. You know what I mean? So there you go. Might hire you all. Vince might be mad that I take you guys away and hire you there with the Phoenix Suns. All right. With the New York Knicks. All right. We talk about the strengths for Ace Bailey, and we went pretty long on that conversation about some of the strengths that he does have. Now the weaknesses. As you talked about, there are some things that will force you to talk about the weaknesses over the strengths, even though he is still a projected 3 to 5 draft pick in an NBA draft where there's a lot of talent. So, The weaknesses, Derek, you and Kyle talked about them a lot. I've agreed on them too, because I look, just because I like the guy a little bit more than you guys doesn't mean I don't see the things that can hold him back. The weaknesses of Ace Bailey that really stop you from saying, okay, stamp it right now for the Sixers, put him at number 3.
He's one of the worst passing wings I've ever seen for a prospect. And that's not even, I don't even really think that's hyperbole. It is one thing. He had an 8.1% assist rate, which basically means he got an assist on 8% of the possessions that he used. That is basically the only comparables you will find with that are like big men who finish plays. People like to compare him to, like Jason Tatum, who improved a lot as a passer, Paul George, who improved a lot as a passer. They were both in the 12 to 13 assist rate range, which is legitimately 50% higher. And I think, I probably watched about 8 to 10 Rutgers games before the lottery, had an opinion. I think when I sat down and really went through and watched all 30 of his games at Rutgers, I was hoping I would be able to look at it and go like, yeah, you know what though? Rutgers spacing is a catastrophe, which it is, by the way. I was hoping that I was going to watch it and go like, I think there's room to grow. He doesn't process 8 of the players on the floor almost at any time. Like he is focused on himself and the man defending him. And there's really very little awareness of the other 8 guys on the floor to a startling degree. It is, there's so many of his jump shots, those contested mid-range jumpers that he shoots like 34% on, that he'll fire off with 17 seconds left on the shot clock. And you'll look and there's like a very obvious kick out pass to the corner. Or like you'll look and if he takes one more dribble, he can set up a dump off to a big man. And look, those shooters in the corner stink, and the big man stinks.
And that's where I was going to go.
But when you're shooting 32% on those shots, you've got to try something else. He does not manipulate a defense with a live dribble at all. And it's one of the reasons why when people start talking about star equity, I don't see it. Because you can look at it, and I actually went back recently and I reread my scouting report on Jason Tatum. My concern with Tatum was that he settled for shots. Not that he couldn't get to the rim. It was that he settled. Or like I noted, and I wrote the draft express right up for it, the last one before he was drafted. I noted that, he had improved his jumper a lot and extended it out further in mid-range. I didn't give enough belief that he would continue putting the work to continue that progress. And I basically overweighted the shooting concerns. I actually went back. I wasn't like super down on Tatum compared to everyone else. I had him 5th on my big board, which is actually higher than I thought. Everyone else kind of had him in like the 4 through 6 range. So I wasn't like a crazy Tatum hater, although I was concerned about his fit with Embiid and Simmons. But like, I don't see those kind of indicators with Ace. A lot of people will look at like, well, look how much Jaylen Brown improved. Jaylen Brown had a 60% free throw rate in college. He could get to the rim whenever he wanted to. And I just don't see that kind of indicator with Tatum where I think he's going to be a high-level creator either for himself or his teammates. All right. That's my big concern.
So I see it, and we see it, and all 4 of us talk about it here where we're like, all right, the passing, he needed to make that pass, right? He needed to make that pass. So let me go the other way, though, with that particular case of young players oftentimes do that, where we speak about, and this is going to be another weakness that you talk about. We speak about a lot of players that are the best guys that can get to the rim anytime they want. They can't shoot. So they can't shoot because they can always get to the rim and finish. In this case, he can shoot really well. And we know he got to the rim in college. He didn't do so at Rutgers. But when you look at Ace Bailey and watching Rutgers, sometimes as a young player, I'm asking you this, when you do watch a young player that doesn't make that pass, did he make it early versus not making it late in the season? Where he and both Harper has to because he's a point guard. Bailey is the wing. That's the scoring option that you need him to do his thing. Was it more of when you were watching it that, hey, and you can't read between his ears while you're watching the game but you can also sometimes say, yeah, that center is going to drop that pass. That other guy is going to drop and fumble the ball out of bounds. It doesn't mean that it's right, but it's also, hey, this is our best chance of winning. I have to take that shot. Because what is it worse for me to take this bad uncontested shot that's going to lower my percentages when Derek and Kyle and Devon and Bree are evaluating me at draft time versus we're trying to win the game now, and the chances are that the percentage that I pass him that ball in the corner, he's going to miss that. And so I'm curious of how you look at that too, where, yes, make the right pass. Does he make it at all, or does he never make the right passes versus, again, seeing that I know me and Dylan have to take this shot?
Yeah. Like I said, when he makes a pass where I'm like, oh, there might be a little bit of untapped potential, it's when he like attacks a closeout with one dribble and has a kick out.
Yeah.
Whenever he's trying to create off the dribble, I don't see it. Okay. And I don't see it like he tried it, it didn't work, so he changed his approach.
Okay.
I didn't see it in high school. I certainly didn't see it at Rutgers. It's and people are gonna compare, like we just saw him. I forget who it was in chat, but like Tatum's not a great passer, or George isn't, like they are worlds ahead of where he is. And there were worlds, like people love that he's only 19. I'm not comparing him against 27-year-old NBA players. I'm comparing him against where these players were
at that time,
at 18 and 19. Mm-hmm. And I'm comparing him to contemporaries at 18 or 19 too. Like he is just like, there is not a great passer. And I think people sometimes get a little too focused of like, well, if this person succeeded when he's not a great passer, then this guy can succeed too. There's a pretty wide gulf between where Ace Bailey is and a not good passer. Like a lot of his bad shots from what I've saw him, and like I said, I went back and I really tried to rewatch this. A lot of them come from the fact that I think defenses know he's not going to make that pass, that he's not even really looking to make that pass, that he's not able to manipulate the defense at all. And because of that, they're able to cheat over to him, sure, and he's still going to take that shot.
Okay.
And like I said, his threes off the dribble, 24% on threes off the dribble, twos off the dribble, 35%. And I think a lot of that comes down, like I said, I think defenses know they can load up on him, because if they double him and leave someone in the corner or leave someone on a baseline cut, he's not going to make you pay for that. Fundamentally, it's just not going to happen. All
right, on the Sixers, because this is the only reason we care. If he doesn't make that pass, he's going to be sitting next to the assistant coaches on the bench. He's just going to be sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
Well, if he doesn't make that pass. So,
I mean, probably not. He's the third pick. He's going to play.
He's the third pick, but he's also fourth, fifth on the pecking order when it comes to the reason why you're drafting him, the scoring. Yeah. He's going to be fourth or fifth. So he's not going to get a lot of plays called for him. He's going to have to make that necessary pass that he's supposed to, or he's going to be sitting next to the bench and the assistant coach is going to pull out the iPad and say, let's take a look at this right now, or else you're going to be sitting here much longer.
Yeah.
It's just, again, this is not Charlotte and Washington. This is a basketball team that is expected to be back in the postseason. Yeah. So while he will, if he doesn't make that pass, he's going to be sitting on the bench, because I'll even go to this, what Riaz says in the super chat, Bree. How much do you worry about Ace not being a top 4 option? Wouldn't he need big minutes to showcase his game? I worry about the fit. All right, yeah, again, if he's not making those passes.
If he makes open shots and defends and doesn't make a lot of mistakes, he will get minutes to play.
He will, but then when they close out on those open shots that he made, the next time down and they close out, he has to put the ball on the floor. And when they do, the defense now shifts and collapses. He maybe can't take that pull-up jumper.
Oh, sure.
He can't do this. So he has to make that pass. And if he doesn't, the whistle will be blowing dead ball, and somebody's already at the scoring table to take him out.
But to Riaz's point, I don't worry about him not being a top 4 option, because if you make him a top 4 option, that just makes that glaring weakness even more glaring, even more of an issue. The issue isn't what option.
It's going to take a while for him to be that top 4
option. The issue is
option.
that his recognition needs to improve by leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
And Phil right now is going nuts in the chat. Phil W. Appreciate you.
What up,
and
Phil?
He's basically saying, like, Tatum's a scorer. You don't need him to pass. No, I fundamentally disagree. Because, like I said, when I bring up those mid-range shooting numbers, which again, 35% on super high volume, by the way, because he doesn't get to the rim all that great. So many of those shots are more difficult because he doesn't see what's going on around him on the floor.
Okay.
It impacts him not just as a playmaker. And by the way, if a guy's capable of drawing a double team, in order to have a functional offense, you need him to be able to make at least the pass out of that double team to get it to the open teammate.
I agree.
You need him to make his teammates better if he is actually going to be worthy of being, talked about with the Paul Georges, with the Jason Tatums. He needs to become a passer. But even if he's not, he is a less efficient version of himself because he refuses to pass. And again, Rutgers sucked. And that's part of what makes this evaluation tough. But I haven't seen that kind of approach. I haven't seen that awareness and recognition in high school or really at any time I've seen him play basketball.
All right, look, folks, we still have a lot to talk about, because He's still polarizing. Even when we agree on the strengths and disagree on some of the weaknesses, the man is a polarizing guy. Why? Because this is an important pick for the Sixers at number 3.
And again, I'm telling you the strengths and weaknesses I saw when watching him. We can have reasonable disagreements on what you think's going to improve upon over the next 5, 6, 7 years. That's fine. It's tough. Nobody actually knows what he's going to be able to improve upon. We can only make educated guesses. Mine might be different than yours. I am never going to tell someone who has him at 3rd that you're wrong. I'm going to say I'm concerned, and I probably weight my concerns differently than you weight those concerns, but I think it's reasonable to have him really anywhere 3 and after.
Yeah. All right. So, folks, when we come back, we'll take a quick pause. We'll get into a little bit more about that and also talk about the NBA Finals. They tip off tonight. OKC starting off in Oklahoma City, the Thunder hosting the Indiana Pacers. We'll talk about that and more right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
All right. We want to make sure that we tell you about Empire Today. Just like your favorite team needs a home court advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to some of those big box stores, and while they might have a flooring department, the person actually helping you with the flooring may have been doing sinks yesterday and could be stocking light bulbs tomorrow. Empire Today lives and breathes flooring, and they will be with you every step of the way. Their flooring experts bring the showroom right to your home. You pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space so you can see how it looks with your furniture and in your house. You get precise measurements taken and have all of your questions answered so there are no surprises. With Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHLY. You heard that right, a $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHLY for full details.
And Kyle's not here, so I have to tell you about being the furniture outdoorsman with Ashley Furniture, folks. Got to tell you about the low prices. They are blooming. So spring in the savings at Ashley. Save up to 50% off of living rooms, bedrooms, and dining rooms, and have it all delivered free. We all love free. I know you love free. I love free. You love free. Ashley has free on the delivery. Plus, get a long-term, no-interest financing. Save on top brand mattresses and get free delivery setup and removal. But don't wait. Again, spring into savings now at Ashley, South Jersey, and Philadelphia. Financing with approved credit. Minimum purchase required. Some exclusions may apply. See store for details. Hurry up to Ashley. And to tell you about the savings right there for Memorial Day savings and all. As we keep on going, we're in June, but the savings were there for Memorial Day, and they keep them going here in the month. Save $100 off of every $1,000 that you spend, plus amazing savings on beautiful outdoor furniture, plus 60 months special financing. Have all your furniture delivered once again locally, free of charge. Plus, with your qualifying purchase, get a free gift. Save on top brand mattresses and get free local delivery setup and removal at Ashley, South Jersey, and Philadelphia. We talked about the financing with approved credit, minimum purchase required. Some exclusions may apply. See store for complete details. Hurry to Ashley. Visit ashleyfurniture.com for more information.
And guys, do you think you know ball? We've got another ball knower bonus I'd like to tell you about. For each game of the NBA Finals, all you have to do is pick the winner of the game. You can win a gift card to the PHLY merch store if you make your pick correctly. Here's how it works. First, click on the link in the description below and then make your pick. Then you place an order in the ALLCITY merch store with a $25 minimum. If you pick correctly, then you get a gift card to the merch store for the same amount as your original order. One important thing to note, you must click the link in the chat or in our show notes to qualify for the gift card. So coming up, we are picking the winner of each game of the NBA Finals. Starts tonight. So again, for all ball knowers, make your pick, then place an order. If you pick correctly, you're going to get a gift card from us for the same amount as your order. That's ball knower. That's the ball knower bonus from PHLY.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast. Derek
You have to
Biden,
get
Devon Givens.
to that game tonight.
Yeah.
Excited.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has been a while. It feels like basketball's been off for 2 weeks.
Since what, last Saturday? Yeah, last
It's only been
Saturday.
5 days, but it feels like longer.
Yeah, it feels much longer. All right, I'll tell you guys about our visits to Valley Brook Country Club in just a bit. But Derek, I see a lot of people in there talking about how Coach Steve Pikiell has talked about at Rutgers. He needed Dylan Harper to be the point guard and the scorer, and he needed A.S. Bailey to score. So maybe we see a lot of those weaknesses and less of that passing because the coach simply pointed out, I need that guy to get buckets, man.
Okay. I need him to make decisions too. Look, I think more and more in the NBA it's becoming about being quick, good decision makers. Anytime you have a guy who hesitates or makes a bad decision, it gives a defense a chance to reset. Like I said before, anytime he completely ignores his other 4 teammates on the court, he gets significantly easier to defend. We've talked about, like, people want to compare him to Maxey. First of all, Maxey is like 10 times a passer that Ace Bailey is. But we have complained that because Maxey misses passes, it is easier for the defense to rotate over and meet him at the rim. And Ace is, like I said, he is as poor of a passer at 18 as you will see from a top 5 pick who's a perimeter scoring option. Defenses are able to take away so much because he simply did not see passes. It's just, I fundamentally disagree with, like, he's got to shoot bad shots. I don't.
No, listen, I get it. And again, I understand. And I'm with you there. I saw Val talking because I agree with you. And Val said, passing is a basketball skill.
Yes.
She is not wrong.
So is decision-making, which includes passing, but isn't limited only to passing.
100%. She is not wrong when she says that.
And it's not just like seeing passes too. It's seeing rotations. Like, there are so many drives where he will make where he just does not anticipate where that help is coming from. And like I said, it's his percentages on non-catch and shoot shots are really bad. Like 35% pull-up twos, 24% pull-up threes. He was 42% on layups at the rim. Like that, you want to talk about like VJ struggling at the rim. Ace was just as bad. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that he just does not anticipate where almost anything on the court is coming from.
Would this be the most controversial? Because I'll exclude the Okafor thing. Is this going to be I don't even know how to word this, but having to watch him for the first 4 years of his career, starting this year, I want to see that for the pure enjoyment for me.
He is not the archetype that I gravitate
watch
towards.
You have to cover all 82 games. Man, let's forget about training camp and preseason and summer league.
Keep Kelly and get Cam Whitmore. Oh man, I might just flip my laptop in the middle.
Oh man, I say, hey Kyle, put a camera down there next to you and Derek on press row, just so I could see that, man. I would love to see that. And the thing is, man, when you talk about, let's say Jaylen Brown is still with the Boston Celtics, there's been talk about maybe he's on the move, Jason Tatum being out. But you look at Kale and OG in New York as defenders, and you look at the Boston defenders and how they go about things. But to see him have to go against those defenses that are really good, not only regular season defense, but playoff defenses, and how he would have to navigate that. I want to see how he progresses throughout the year if he's in the Sixers uniform, and seeing those types of defenses and making those strides as a passer, as a playmaker, as that player that you're talking about, where maybe the narrative changes and it shifts. And at what point does it shift and change within his first season?
I hope it does. Honestly,
I know you do.
Regardless of whether or not the Sixers draft him, league's just more fun when good players are in it. I think some people think like, oh, well, I'm not going to listen to his eval because he doesn't like Ace. It's like, no, my concerns from Ace come from having watched him. Honestly, by all accounts, he seems like a good kid who works hard and his teammates like him. I have nothing against him. I have concerns. And like I've said time and time again here, predicting which of those concerns will be nullified with future development is almost impossibly tough. So my concerns, I might weigh them more, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that like he can't progress. I just have a confidence interval that's probably not as high as most people who would take him number 3 overall. It is, he certainly has unique physical talents, and the shot combined with that and the archetype that is hard to find, it's why I've never been able to if you were to listen to the last 30 minutes of the show, there's a reason I can't fully give up on him, even though he has a lot of things I'm really, really concerned about. And it's because that profile at that position with that shot is really tough to get. I hope whoever drafts him, it works out. I really do.
All right. That's crazy. He has a super chat asking us this, Derek. Ace showed me something when Harper was out due to injury, and he put up 37 against Northwestern, 39 against Indiana. He has main star potential.
His very next game with Dylan Harper out, he was 3 for 15 for 10 points.
You couldn't just let That's Crazy have that one? You couldn't let That's Crazy just have that?
Even in that, because like I said, I've watched every game, but that game against Northwestern was one of the ones I went back and I rewatched right away. Everyone, I think he made 13 shots in that game. 11 of them were pull-up jumpers over someone, which is great. He's talented enough where he's going to get off and going on nights like that. but it's not like he was getting to the rim at will. It's not like he was forcing rotations and creating for anyone. If he's not making that tough shot, like you saw the next game against Michigan, the stat line looks completely different. He is very reliant on taking 1 or 2 dribbles to get into his pull-up and shooting over top of someone. And it looks fantastic when it works, but it can look pretty bad when it doesn't.
All right, and before we get to Brian Pumper shortly here with his Brian Pumper segment of the day, talking about Ace Bailey, another strength and a weakness that ties together. Kyle wrote about this when he wrote his story at AllPHLY last week, allphly.com last week, speaking about a lot of the weaknesses, if you will, for each of the candidates that we talk about, the prospects in the Sixers range there from 3 and, of course, on out for these players that we have in the mix. And that is what Kyle asked Seth Greenberg about. When asked, can you give me 2 strengths and a weakness and what do you need to work on? And his answer was, which was fine for me because it gave me a lot of laughter and some fun. Me and my brother were just talking about it recently, but I don't have any weaknesses and I have more than 2 strengths, big dog. That's a strength and that's a weakness because it can get you in trouble, to your point, with that passing on the floor.
Yeah, and look, it's one thing.
You want confident players.
Yes. So it's one thing to say, like, express that in a funny way on an interview.
Which he did.
It was funny.
Yeah.
Got a good chuckle. It's what do you actually believe? And even so, like, my issue with
I doubt that he says that to any executives in their one-on-one meetings.
I hope not.
That's what I'm saying. I hope he was coached not to say that in that closed-door meeting.
My concern is less the mentality, or specifically, it's not the confidence that I'm concerned about. It's that I just don't see him picking up on things that are happening in front of him on the court.
Okay.
So you can be confident. Like, Kobe had supreme confidence, but Kobe had incredible pattern recognition and would be able to dissect the defense when they rotated to him. In order to be a true top-of-the-line scorer, you need to be able to react to what the defense throws at you, and I just haven't seen it in the 2 or so years I've been watching him.
Folks, this won't be the first or the last. There will be many more Ace Bailey conversations because it's June 5th. The draft is 20 days away, man. 20 days away from where we are right now. Actually, it's 19 days away because of the fact that it's Wednesday, Thursday. Today is Thursday. So we're 19 days away from the NBA draft. This is not going to be the last time that we speak about Ace Bailey. We need to talk about this in a weekly thing that we have upcoming that Kyle gave us a great idea about that we're going to do. And I'd imagine we're probably even going to start off talking about Ace Bailey because of the way that we need to continue this conversation about it. And so, folks, this is going to be a fun one. And if they draft Ace Bailey, get ready. Buckle in, everybody. Starting with that day, and then when we go to Summer League and watch those games, and I get the report on how Colin Derrick had to sit on press row and watch that young man play basketball in that environment, it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time. All right, let's get to the Igavini said we need to call this segment Pump It Up. Let's get to the Pump It Up segment here on the show.
Get
with
Nike
Brian
to sponsor
Pumper.
it.
Yeah, get Nike to sponsor it on the Pump It Up. That's actually Reebok, and we get them to pump it up. Dudes who don't like a wing god like Ace must enjoy watching their local bartender, number 65, Alex Reese, the used minivan, play for professional basketball, cough, cough. D. Botner.
Okay.
You said okay. Done and done. Thank you, Pump.
Again,
Pump It Up segment.
The wing part is what is keeping me in on Ace. And again, it's not like I'm like, well, you can't take Ace with a top 10 pick. Like, no, I have Ace at 5 or 6. My concerns outweigh or way stronger on me than it does for a lot of people. Yeah. But his position, his size, and the scarcity of that is the very thing keeping him in play for me.
Brian Pumper continues. The Rutgers supporting cast was tragic. Like this passing narrative is an ESPN talking points. Even Dylan Harper, number 1 point guard prospect, only averaged 4 assists on that basketball team because it was
Rutgers
tragic.
sucked. I've said that time and time again. But so did the reads that Ace Bailey made. Like, again, I was hoping when I started my rewatch that I would look at his numbers and say, you can throw those away. Those are overrated. Those are overblown. Don't pay attention to those numbers. No, the film is, I think, worse than the numbers. I would honestly be curious, a lot of the Ace people, I don't even mean this dismissively, it's just like people don't usually go out of their way to watch much Rutgers basketball. Like, how many games of Ace full games did Ace Pump watch? I'd be curious. Like legitimately, with True Serum and everything.
How much do you think it would be different if he was at Duke, Michigan State?
100%. Because then everyone would have watched a fair amount.
And this is not a knock on Steve Peichel, the coach.
And you would get a much better representation of him in a functional environment. You all would have watched more of him. We all would have picked apart his flaws a little bit more, I think. You wouldn't be relying on, some highlight packages. But yeah, it would have been a much easier projection if he would have played at Duke or Kentucky or something like that.
All right. Let's get to talk about the people who want to hang out with us at the PHLY golf event that we have, the second annual golf event at Valley Brook Country Club. It's the PHLY Liberty Open for the second annual. It's from 2 to 7 on June 14th. So we are just over a week away from our second annual. The first time that all 4 of us will get a chance to be there together. Bree represented the show last year. We were out in Vegas, and we get to hang out with all of you. And it's presented by Xfinity. Xfinity combines the power of internet and mobile in all-in-one plan. Get lighting, fast speeds at home, and a secure network on the go. Restrictions apply. Xfinity internet require. Actual speeds vary. The 4-person scramble, though, folks, includes a limited edition PHLY golf tee gift, prizes, and post-round dinner and draft beer, along with a great raffle, including Philly memorabilia. Visit allphly.com/events to learn more and purchase an individual or foursome reservation for the tournament. And when we talk about joining the foursome with the PHLY staff, they're ones headlined by Fran Duffy, who has his own foursome. Rich Hoffman has a foursome. So does Jamie Lynch. And Tyler Zulli and his dad have 2 open spots on their team if you want to sign up and join. So, Die Hard members, you are eligible right now to save $50 on a foursome. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, so go sign up, everybody. Make sure you get in there. All right, let's get to the finals getting underway tonight, Derek. Thunder, Pacers, your prediction, how it all plays out. What are you looking at when it comes to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and his team versus Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers?
So I want to say the Pacers have a chance. I really, really do.
You want to show respect to the team.
I want to show respect. They're a fun team. They're a great story. I enjoy watching them play basketball. OKC is just so much better.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, like, if OKC, I don't even want to say like OKC has weaknesses because they won a bazillion games. But if there are things that OKC is not all that great at, it's like defensive rebounding. But Indy's not a good offensive rebounding team. They don't really pursue them all that aggressively. It is, and the strengths that Indy does have, like spacing the floor, getting out in transition. Well, OKC is as athletic and can cover ground like nobody else in the league. So, like, I don't think it's a great matchup for Indy. I don't think they're going to have a great chance of leveraging their strengths against OKC. And I don't think they're going to be able to take OKC's weaknesses and really use them against them all that well either. This, to me, just feels like OKC in 5. And that sounds dismissive, and I hate it because, like I said, I want to root for Indy. I want Indy at least to be a good story. They're fun to watch and fun to talk about.
And you want a good finals.
I think OKC is just a juggernaut.
Yeah, I had a chance to join John Marks on the John Marks Philly show this morning, and he asked me this question, and I said, Thunder in 6, but I feel like I'm trying to be more respectful.
Yeah, it's like I want to say 6 because like that just feels more respectful.
But I kind of think OKC in 5, and John said the same thing, gentleman sweep when it came down to it. Just to continue on with this conversation, I want to tell everybody that we are going into overtime here at allphly.com. Thank everybody on the fast side, the TV. If you want to join us and continue to watch the show, check us out at allphly.com as we talk about the finals and say goodbye to everyone with the world famous roll call. But yes, I'm looking at this and I'm saying they're that good, and the competition here, while they do play a fast-paced style, so can OKC.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that you can do that better than anybody in the league because OKC is just that good and their defense is that strong.
The way that they can rotate defensively,
yes,
and recover, get to get back out the shooters, it's just strength against strength. And, Indy has made a lot of strides on defense. Like, they went from being like 26 to 28 every year. I think they were basically like mid-pack. Well, mid-pack's going to be tough against Thunder team that is as good as any team in the league at getting out in transition themselves.
Yep.
They force more turnovers than anyone in the league, and they take care of the ball better than anyone in the league. And a combination of those two, I just think OKC is going to be able to play to their strengths more than Indy is theirs. And like I said, it is, it's not even really about Indy on this time. It's just I think OKC is a great, great, great team and one of the best defenses we've seen in the modern era of the NBA.
Yeah, and look, as good as a team as Indiana is, we're talking 2 All-Stars on the other side that performed really well. Then the third star of the team, who wasn't an All-Star, but is really good, Chet Holmgren, had a really good playoffs and especially good Western Conference.
Yeah, and he will be an All-Star. He was just injured for a good chunk.
Exactly.
Of the year.
Yeah, so you figure them and the depth that they also have. So when we talk about depth with Indiana, they can match that depth. So when New York had a problem with the head coach not believing in pass man number 7, and then he had to finally do it, and it worked. They can go deep in their bench too, and it's because they're good, because they're really good, and they can do everything that Indiana can do, and it's just gonna be an interesting one. I don't think it's gonna be a very long series. I saw DJ, aka Sandman, says that he thinks it's going 7. I would be surprised if it went 7.
Yeah,
I'd be surprised. But I'll take it if it's going to be, that means we get up to the draft because the finals are good. I'll take it. I'll take it all day. But I just think it's a 5 series, but I did pick OKC in 6.
Yeah. And Hedva is basically just repeating Rick Carlisle over and over and over again. And I think she said earlier that she's going OKC in 6 because of Carlisle, basically giving Indy a win because it's fair.
Coaching edge?
That's fair. But I think
coaching edge or coaching that
he's just creative enough where he's going to figure it out. I think that might be
also creative too.
I think that might be why I gave him 5, though. I think I did give him a win. It's just we're 1 win off.
Yeah, you're more giving it to the coach doing the right thing and all that stuff.
Also,
so
like,
it's gonna be fun.
Dagno's great too. So.
Yeah, you give him a bunch of days to scout and figure out how he wants to do things.
Yep.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be an interesting one. So we'll see. Bree, what do you think as far as the series goes? How do you see this one playing out? Do you see? Okay.
I said Thunder in 6. I think they're going to split the first 2 games, and then Pacers will get 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thunder, though. It'll be sick.
There you go. There you go. Bree, president of basketball ops, knocking it down. Yeah, book it. Kyle's in the chat. Kyle, tell us what you think the series, what it looks like.
Kyle, give us your prediction.
Give us your prediction on the series while we're doing roll call so we know who you have. OKC. You picked them to win championship at the beginning of the year. You both did. And how many games since you picked him there? All right, this was fun though. I mean, to get into the strengths and the weaknesses where we focus on him and Ace Bailey and converse about it. This was a good one, man. This Ace Bailey conversation is going to be fun, and we will be, even if he's not in the Sixers uniform like you said, we will be talking about him in the pros. We will be.
Yeah,
we will, especially if he goes to Washington or something. We get to see him, and yeah.
He is a player that, and Kyle's brought this up before, though. I think you've got to sort of rewire him a little bit, especially early on in his career. Maybe he improves the handle and when he gets more, because one thing we haven't really talked about, like his at-rim numbers were really bad, both in terms of how frequently he got there. Like I said, he only, or I don't know if I brought this up, only 10.9%, like 11% of his half-court shots were at-rim layups. And the reason I differentiate layups and overall at-rim is because, like, most dunks, in fact, 13 out of the 15 dunks that Ace had were created by others. So like off-ball cuts, offensive rebound, things like that. When I'm talking about his ability to create off the bounce in the half court, layups only accounted for like 10% of his half court shots. He shot 42% at the rim. A lot of that comes down to, I mean, first of all, his poor passing. Because like I said, I think defenders can help and rotate over without being burned. There's no consequence to it. But also his handle needs to improve. His awareness needs to improve. But also his strength. And I think his strength, he got bumped off on his drives a lot. That is one thing where I expect to get better. Can he get better at that? Can he improve upon that? That's going to be one of his big improvement points as well. But yeah, he's going to be like, it is one where I feel like the Sixers are a better landing spot for him, which is what Kyle has mentioned a bunch. You go to Charlotte. Although Charlotte, if they keep LaMelo, which who knows what they're going to do, that could theoretically be it. No, even still, half court, I worry about that. At least LaMelo will help get him out on the break. But like you go to Washington, and I think he could just play into his worst instincts, which I think early in his career, I think he needs to, get rewired a little bit. Not necessarily to be a role player, but at least to focus on those early in his career so he can build a base to grow off of down the line.
Something I've said about both he and Tre Johnson not being in those types of situations. Tre might fare a little bit better than Ace, but neither one of them, you don't want to see them in that spot. Yeah. All right. Brian Pumper threw us one more super chat and says, bringing up the shooting percentage with no context is such a casual take. Ace's shot diet is different from VJ's. Shaky jumpers, like we don't have a history of this.
Wait, I gave him a lot of credit for his off-ball three-point shooting. I don't care about his three-point percentage. I certainly don't care about his free throw percentage. I don't know what you're talking about, quite frankly. It feels like you're arguing against a straw man at times, Pumper, because I gave him a lot of credit. I said his elite skill was as an off-ball shooter.
Got you. Kyle said Thunder in 5, by the way.
Okay.
Thunder in 5. Locking in. We all picked the Thunder to win the championship. Kyle says Thunder in 5. Bree had a poll up there. Is Ace Bailey the pick at number 3? And with 146 votes during the show, 67% said what, Derek?
I'm going to go with Ace.
Take him.
Yeah.
Yep, take him. 22.
He is by far the biggest name.
22%. No, give me someone else. 11%. Rather trade out or down.
But I expected that. Honestly, I think we did one like a month ago. I think it was like 75 or something.
Yeah, wasn't it, Bree? Like 70-something percent? Yeah, like 70-something percent. So there you go. Still, but we do get a lot of people who like, no, go away from Ace. Go somewhere else. That's why I'm surprised, though, that it is at 67% for that one. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. But before we say goodbye, we want to make sure that we point out that it's time for the world-famous roll call.
All right, I guess we got to start it off with the guy who keeps the lights on in this building.
Yes, he
Brian
does.
Pumper, appreciate you showing up. Even though if we...
Pump it up.
And here's what I'll say, because there are some Ace fans who, if you don't have him at 3, will call you all the names in the world. Brian Pumper is respectful. I appreciate that. I don't agree with you at all, but I appreciate the way that you are willing to come
Pump it up. That's the segment. Thank you, Agavini.
Also, Duck Holiday, another guy on the pro
What up,
Ace
Duck?
camp. We'll start it off with Mom's grandchildren because she's right there.
Hello, Mom. We had a
Jess
good
with
day.
the Purple Heart.
Hello,
Hedva.
Jessica.
Bootzilla.
Boots.
Eugene Ross.
What up, Gene?
Money Mar, who was picking Indy. I'm pretty sure I saw him picking Indy.
Oh, it's a few Indy. I saw Val pick Indy.
I appreciate the bold take.
Val
take.
picked Indy also.
Oh, give Val a shout out while we're there
Hey,
as
Val.
well. Music Lover 31.
Play that music.
Not even going to try to imitate Kyle, but Darkness. Appreciate you joining.
Turn the
me.
lights down for the Indiana Pacers.
Not yet.
Not yet. All right, just turn the lights down. Dim the lights.
INS. Brian Knight.
Be night.
Let's see. I think I said Vic already. Some guy named Kyle Newbeck. Appreciate you stopping by.
Good luck,
Next time I
Kyle.
actually show up for work. Prophet 1. DJ, a.k.a. Mr. Sandman.
Bring me a dream.
A lot of people. Igavini. I don't think I mentioned him before. A lot of repeats because this debate got people going.
It got a lot of people going in there.
What's the 76th man?
Yeah.
SB Cole.
What up, SB? Rich P. I see you,
I
Rich.
think I'm getting to the top of my scroll list. I criticize Kyle for not writing down names in the middle
But
of
you
it.
normally
and then
write
I
them
always
down.
forget. When I got in a rhythm, I would always write them down as a show and on. But when I do it like once every 3 months, I always forget. Sean Ford. There's a Sean
What
Ford
up, Sean?
in there. Mellow 3 Point.
Vic. Mello, my man. Did you see you said music lover.
Big Bride Tooney.
Big Bride. Did you see Vince in there? Not Vince, our Vince.
Not our Vince.
Vince Salamatino.
I don't believe I said that.
Vince in
Good
the
catch.
chat, so it's good to see Vince in there. SB Cole, I think you might have already said
Line
SB
Wen.
Cole.
Jesse Bond. I think I'm at the edge of my scrolling limits.
What up, Jesse?
Oh, I feel Kyle's pain now. I hate giving him credit. I got to remember. DC Marley. DC Marley. Phil W., of course.
Phil said what defense, Devon? The Knicks and the Pacers ran. That's a different type of offense, though. The Pacers.
Also,
offense.
they're both like average defensively. They're not like good defensively, but they're not. I think people.
And I
have-
was talking more of the wings that Ace Bailey would have to face.
right, like Siakam. Siakam's a good defender.
Siakam, Kalen OG,
Yeah.
Jalen Brown.
Yeah, they've got their limitations.
And when
but
Tatum
it's usually
does come back.
it's usually at the point of attack, and it's usually at the big man,
Yeah,
especially with the.
those are the ones I
Knicks.
was talking about.
Yeah.
Phil W. Yeah, so
I think
those
that
were
better.
what I was talking
Oh, there's Better Call B-Ball Paul. Don't
What
wanna
up,
forget
B-Ball
him 'cause
Paul?
It's a great name.
about. Had a great year in Detroit.
Densley Richard. I know another
Densley?
big Ace supporter. Did I said darkness.
There you go.
I think it's all
That's
right.
everybody.
You better love somebody. He was
Nona.
in here earlier.
Love somebody, love somebody,
Did I
love
miss
somebody.
Winona? I appreciate if I missed Winona. But
You
Winona,
said
too.
Jessica, Purple Heart. Said Val. It's good to see everybody in there. Make sure you go like and subscribe to the show. And when you do, make sure you hit that bell icon so you can get the alert to let you know that it is, in fact, showtime. Sounds like that. We also want you to make sure you hit the like button and to thank our super producer and our president of basketball operations. She is Bree.
Still the GOAT.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. Still the GOAT. So make sure you do all of that stuff, folks, and we really appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. We should all be here together to close out the week and hopefully give you a lot to talk about when it comes to the draft and all going on out there in the professional basketball world. So for Derek, Kyle in the chat, Bree, I'm Devon. We'll see you all tomorrow at 3 p.m. right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.